Let me as we proceed through here, let's jump into the final portion of the discussion, part three, the solution. And the first part of that discussion is the ballot or rubber bullets. And the question is, does voting work? Is it an effective method for change? Can our voices be heard through our current political system? What are our thoughts on voting? First question I want to throw out there.
Um, I'll jump in. That's a difficult topic because voting will not outright solve the issue because you're dealing with the system here. And so, as I'm having conversations with friends and colleagues, I challenge them to say, let's not make Trump the poster boy for racism. Because some people have it in their mind that if we vote Trump out in November, in December, we no longer have a race issue.
Right.
I'm like, let's go ahead and get that off the table. Yeah, he needs to be out, and I agree with that. But in December, America is not race free. So when they used to say, "Oh, voting solves this, voting solves this," it don't solve it. Under every American president, again, now I'm not gonna call one out specifically. Under all American presidents, we had the same issue. We had the same issues with Emmett Till, and we had the same issues 30 years ago with Rodney King. We had the same issues with Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, all these, and we're still having them today. So racism didn't start in 2017, and it doesn't end in November, and it's not a one-person issue. So I think we have to go and vote locally. Now, I say locally is where we miss the vote, because then they should know, unless we have a police commissioner, the mayor selects a police commissioner that has a little bit more respect for the Black community, then we see change. But voting in itself in November, I mean, yeah, I would love to see us come out in droves and affect change, but that doesn't solve racism.
We're gonna vote in, like and then it's like, well, as far as the president is concerned, well, these are your options. So what? Got to vote them, or you got this crazy person on the other side who doesn't know how to speak English properly. So of course I don't like the idea of that at all. And if that's the case, then it means that was put in front of me that wasn't a part of representing my voice. So if it's not a local situation initially, then I don't think it all matters. So when it comes to voting at all, I think the biggest thing with that is political education and understanding and transparency. So if people if they're deceiving, with their words like politicians are, then that's just another whirlwind. So education, transparency, along with that, voting is one of the puzzle pieces, but there's definitely a lot more pieces that needs to be in place in order for voting to work also.
I'm not political. I believe in voting because somebody died for us to vote. I agree with both of you guys' point. Does it save everything? No. It may make some changes, but I think that if you don't vote, you're going to get what you still have now. So maybe it'll change, maybe it won't. But if you don't exercise your right to say, I want my hat, my coin in the hat, then that's the only way you can hopefully get change. So that's my opinion on voting. I think it should be done because people died and fought for me to vote. But do I believe every politician? No. Do I believe, I'm not trying to say I'm super deep or spiritual. I'll just say I believe in God, and I just say, hey, I vote because somebody died for me to vote. But do I believe politicians can change and save the world? No, I don't think so. I just think it's just a method for us to try to change things. But I think the same problems that you see here is going to happen with the next president. I think it's going to still be here. I just think that maybe you have a president that have a little bit more of a clear conscience than just getting on Twitter and calling the mayor of Washington incompetent because she had Black Lives Matter on the street. And, this president just says what he want to say when he feel like it. And even when you get to the point where you want to attack Twitter and say, I shut Twitter down, I said, you're a bad joker when you want to try to shut Twitter down because they didn't do what you said. So I think voting matters, Nate. I think, we should tell our kids to go vote for change. and then you just put everything else to rest in God's hands and hope things will change.
Mark, I agree with you again. I don't just say voting matters. I say vote. Y'all
Just
vote.
Just
Vote.
yeah.
I think voting is not the end all and be all, but it is, I think it is the beginning of the tipping point of the power structure. And I think if you look at it, it's a reason why they spend millions of dollars trying to get into office, from the
Right.
presidential position to Senate to be a senator's son is special. To be a congressman is special in this country. And people spend lots of money and they do lots of terrible things to get into those positions because those positions hold power. So vote, because when you get them people, when we get those people into office, we don't keep this in mind. You can control those politicians. Voting is just the start. Controlling the politicians is the second part. So this is my biggest thing. I was just talking to my wife about this. People ask for the democratic process, the Democratic Party, for example. Black people love to say, what is the Democratic Party going to do for the Black community? You don't have to ask what the Democratic Party is going to do for the Black community. You are the Democratic Party if you're voting Democrat. You control the Democratic Party. You can go to the meetings that they have. You can vocalize what it is that you want. You can control what is being said and done. Like vote, and then participate. Like, I cannot emphasize, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. both agreed on voting. The ballot or the bullet was Malcolm X's speech. Martin Luther King was marching for voting rights. Everybody who's watching this, listening to this, vote, and then go tell the politician what it is that you want. Hold them accountable. Make them they pay lobbyists. Corporations pay lobbyists millions of dollars to make those politicians do what those corporations want. Communities can do the same thing. That's why everybody is fighting over those positions in Congress, in the Senate, and in the presidential office. The local positions are important, the regional positions are important, and the national positions are important. So vote. And I know that's my biggest soapbox to jump on, but vote.
And two, we got to do things, I think, even non-traditional of what we've done in our community as well. Like, we don't donate to campaigns either.
You're right.
To those things, because, in the short time that I've even worked in the line of business that I am, we deal with managed care and governmental contracts and things of that nature. And when you start to get on the hill, you actually see how things are operating. And I guess that's maybe a little bit even too why I'm a little bit jaded about the process of it too, because they don't listen to their constituents, they listen to the dollar.
Yes.
So when you go in and the lobbyists go in to then say, this is what we want done, they go in with a campaign check or a PAC check. So it still goes back to economics. So even in that, you control people with your money. Yep. And if I've donated $1,000 to your campaign, I can get a meeting with you anytime I want to. Yep. I can walk in and say, and I can pick up the phone. Like, I've never seen in so many cases where an individual they tell thousands of people to write emails to your governor, your mayor, your senator, when single people can have a single issue because they wrote that check. They can go right in there and get a seat in front of that person for $1,000 to make them make change.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have people that are in place to make the change, but we got to have that economic power as well to force them to make change.
And look, that kind of goes to one more thing. We was talking about the keeping money out of their pocket thing, because some people, they do see it as a way bigger thing, or they see it, well, how do we get to that point? And we get to that point by doing that, writing those $1,000 checks or whatever checks is to get in front of the people that we vote in. And then also it's helping build small infrastructure all across the country and the planet that shows minority or specifically Black business owners. So, for instance, like I can't go out right now and go to get a coffee at one place, go next door, get my computer fixed at another place while I'm waiting on my coffee, and then drop my kid off at a Black daycare all on one block.
Right.
I can't do that because of business diversity is lacking, and there's a lot of skilled positions available, and that's a whole other story for that. But it's based off of building small, tiny things, just like haircuts, and then moving on to finding the Black grocery store, then moving on to finding the Black IT guy who can, work viruses or fix your computer or whatever it is. It's about reaching out and building infrastructure just based off of those small things that can help sway along with voting and making sure that we're donating to the people that we are putting into those seats.
It's definitely change is built around an ecosystem, infrastructure. The Black community has to build an infrastructure for change built around economic power, built around voting, built around building political, building itself as a political force, where you're combining your voting with things like, this is going to get very political, but PACs and super PACs and lobbyist groups that go and make sure that the interests of the community are being addressed in those town hall meetings or with those local Congress groups or whatever the case may be. It's an ecosystem of things that have to be working with each other to make sure that we are moving in the direction that we desire to be, that we want to go. And one of the biggest things that we need for that is leadership, to be honest.
See, I disagree with that. I think that we do have leadership. I think that the meatiest version of leadership is different. But I think I forgot his name who paid all those students at Howard or what was it in Atlanta? Clark. He's a leader.
Yeah, his name escaped me. I know you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a leader. There's dozens of them. I think that we as a community need to learn that they're there. We just have to identify them and not the actors, and the comedians, and all the people who's in entertainment. I think that's a part of just. Yeah, I think that's a part of the cultural disconnect with who we are ourselves rather than the other way. But anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, I hate to keep coming back to it. I think we're harder on ourselves than we are with anybody else. I mean, right now, tell me who's the top LGBT community leader. We don't know who they are, but they have enough economic power and they stay enough together that they get change immediately. If one homosexual was murdered in the middle of the street, even Black or white, there would be an outcry. And I just think too, we just have to be just as organized as they are. And I just think I think there is some need for leadership, but I think sometimes we hold ourselves to a higher standard than everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know what the gay community is doing, but they have a fear. There is a fear that you don't touch them economically, politically, anything. And then they have only really started making a push over the past 20 years, and they have made more headway in 20 years than we have made in 400.
I agree.
Very true. Let me move to this next point as we get ready to round out the discussion for the day. The next topic is who watches the watchmen? And by that, I mean, how do we address police brutality going forward? Is it possible to eliminate these instances that end in tragedies like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, and so many more? The list goes on and on. Is it possible to stop these things going forward? Is there legislation that can be passed? Are there precautions that can be taken from a legal standpoint? Not how we act at a traffic stop, but are there concrete things that the government can put in place to help negate these outcomes?
Accountability, of course, is one. I think that's the question. Is it a couple of hour long or a day long question itself? But I will say that, of course, accountability, and so the police is a family. It's a they have their own situation. They're unionized, governed by their own situation. And for instance, the cameras on them. I remember when I first started hearing about this, I was like, "There's no way on the planet Earth that it would be mandatory for police to have cameras that stays on." I'm like, "There's no way. It's too much that goes on."
Yeah.
And so for that to come to pass, that's one of the few times I've been shocked, dealing with type of oppression or whatever. So,
well, the camera always conveniently cuts off when something happens. It seems like.
And that's what I was going to say next is that there's still even a lack of accountability for that. There's not. Once you put your last button on your uniform and walk outside, if there should be a loud ringing or something that says, cut on your camera.
Right.
You're leaving the police precinct, cut on your camera. So of course there's still so many levels of that needs to be addressed. But I think the biggest thing is would be policing ourselves, because of policing is in general what it is, just the basic definition. It's not a way to for us to progress just as a nation in general. The type of policing that goes on. When you look at other countries, well, some countries that have a better time at diffusing situations, we're just behind on police training so far back. I looked at some statistics that show that it's like out of all the training, there was bars that showed where training went. Over 60-something% was shooting. It was like another large number for self-defense, and then it was like 0.3% for racial situations or diffusing non-violent situation. It was very, 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 very small, and there's literally no reason for it other than they want police to be able to shoot the hell out of people.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I think we have to have legislation similar to that they passed for, again, I think for, if we want to deter drugs, then you notice the kingpin laws came out, tougher sentences on crack versus cocaine. They do that. They put that there in place as a deterrent, and it has proven to work to see it go down. And I think what we have to do now is we have to have severe convictions for our police force. If you cross that line, whether it led to a death or not, you should be charged with a hate crime. And when you start using language like that and start sending people to jail for 20 and 30 years, I guarantee before somebody takes their gun out and shoots or put an illegal choke on, because the laws are already there, they're just not following them, and then the system itself is not prosecuting. So in that, if we start to put those policies and laws in place, then I think that gets us to a better point to then help solution the problem. Like, again, we can't solve this. Marching ain't gonna solve it. Policy has to come out of it. Policy and law changes.
I totally agree. I think Steve hit the nail on the coffin. I hate to agree with him, so because I don't like him, but I think he's totally right. I think that if the laws are in place that make someone think before they shoot or think before they put a hold on you, I think that's somewhere it's gonna stop. I think hopefully we get there soon. Hopefully this is the point where people look at it and say, new laws are in place to train police officers, to tell them, hey, if you do this, this is gonna happen. But my question is, how's it gonna get in place? Who's gonna be the one that's gonna get this in place? Because believe it or not, I don't know if it's gonna come to Black people. Who's gonna be the ones in the higher office is gonna tell laws to be in effect to make sure police treat people better? That's what I don't know.
Well,
who's gonna be who's gonna be that? What's gonna be that stickler to say, hey, when a new police officer come into the academy, you're trained not to do this, you're trained not to do that, you're trained not to profile somebody because if they have tinted windows, that you profile them, but just run a plate, and if a plate come back clean, leave them alone. But some people trail you because they just see tinted windows on the Impala. Oh, he got to be selling dope. But let me say this on the police side. You may not agree with me. We don't know what they go through on a daily basis. We really don't. The calls they get, going to different domestic violence, different issues, even the black people that have to go, the white officers that got to go into the projects. I don't know what they deal with. I don't know what they have to deal with, so I don't know what's in their head
True.
on a daily basis. We did a Man Up event about 5 years ago, and I think it was Burdine that said a lot of these white officers are already on edge when they go to work. They on edge because probably what they was taught about black people or what they have seen, they on edge. So if one thing jump off, they just could snap. So we don't know, but I just think, like Steve said, if they don't get legislation in place to put more of accountability on police officers, I think this stuff can continue. I hope, legislation and laws come in place soon that keeps cops more accountable. But police officers, like in New York and stuff, they corrupt. You know they corrupt. Chicago, they corrupt. You know it is. So that's something I can say on this point because I'm not really political, nor would I really understand what needs to be done. I just think that some got to be in place to let a cop know that if I do this, if I don't do it the right way, I could go to jail for multiple years because I didn't think before I made a move.
Yeah, but I think we even have to train, and I like your point, but I think we even have to, turn the mirror in the other direction as well, because just like you made that statement about we don't know what police officers go through, which is true. Like they go to work and deal with it, but there's, kids that's in your program that deal with it every day. You got some kids that don't know how they're going to eat, that don't know, that are afraid to walk from corner to corner, and then where's the level of sensitivity for Tamir Rice? How old was Tamir Rice when you pull up and say, I'm going to a neighborhood and I'm addressing a child? Like the 911 call against Tamir Rice was, they said the gun is probably fake and it is a baby. And within 2 seconds, they killed a baby in the middle of a park. So it's like, yeah, I hear on this side, but it's like, what if it's one of our babies that they get 2 seconds of justice? So I'm like, again, we got to put it back on them. Like they got to be, if you're gonna take the job, you got to be ready for what you get ready to see and deal with.
If you was working at the warehouse and you messed up whatever it is, like when you got your process, when you go there, okay, I go there, I do this, and I do this. When you mess up, they ain't gonna say, well, I wonder what you got going on at home. They ain't gonna say, hey, bro, you messing up money. What are you doing? Right. They don't care about what you got going on. So, and not to say that we shouldn't be concerned about them, but that's another of the things that need changing is just mental evaluations, not with just police, but with anybody who's dealing with life or death situations or sharing you with or violent situations. They need mental evaluation and comfort to go places to talk to people if they are having mixed feelings about certain things, being in new communities and dealing with new type of people. That it needs to be some type of communication or barrier that a professional helps them get across.
I agree. I agree. We don't know what police go through, and sometimes they might be bringing things outside of work to work. But I feel like if you wake up in the morning, you feel like you're having a bad day, you need to call in sick. You don't need to bring that to work. You go to a fast food restaurant.
PTO, though.
Yeah, and they got an attitude. You want to talk to the manager. People, you trying to get them fired. Police come to work with a bad attitude. People getting killed. You should have stayed at home today, buddy. Like we don't have time for that. Like people's lives are on the line. And personally, I think it needs to be more difficult to become a police officer.
Yeah.
The training needs to be longer. It needs to take years to become a police officer. Even if that means you have to pay them more, but make it more difficult to become a police officer. Make the training more comprehensive. Don't just train them on how to shoot and roll and be in action movies. This is not what that is for. They're not supposed to be shooting their guns every day. Like that's a whole nother discussion because okay, real quick. America likes to act like black people, likes to criminalize black people. And even Candace Owens said that black people love to kind of take their worst and throw them up to the forefront. They like to worship their worst, the worst of their race. And the truth of the matter is, there is nothing more American than African American. There is nothing more American than black people. We are the truest Americans. America loves the bad boy. America loves its rebels. So to what Candace Owens was said of like, I hate to even repeat it, but she was trying to say George Lloyd, I'm sorry, was a bad guy. And America was trying to champion him. It likes to, black people were trying to champion him. They like to champion their bad guys. But America loves bad guys. Billy the Kid is a bad guy. They love Billy the Kid. Al Capone is a bad guy. America loves Al Capone.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse James is a bad guy. They love Jesse James.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a bad guy. They like that's not black. That's America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the rest of the world knows America's for shoot 'em up movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the police training is. It's a shoot 'em up movie, and it needs not to be that.
But the thing about that statement though is that man, so let's say every day from now for the next 5 years, I spend $100 in counterfeit money. Do I deserve to have my life taken?
No.
So her statement in general, for even mentioning him not being a good guy or a bad guy, whatever that is, it still has nothing to do with it. We're talking about being just across the board.
You're right.
Not even if a white kid came out and stole a car and crashed into somebody's garage, and then a black kid came out and stole a car and crashed into something, but they just should be done just the same. So even and that's why it's hard for me to take anything from people who talk like that, because then the foundation of where you're coming from doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Like, telling me he deserved to die because of a counterfeit money, because he's a bad guy. Did he take his lives?
And I think she's actually backwards. I think we are the most critical of ourselves than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start to look at it, we always compare, and then again, it goes back to that black on black crime argument, is that we always take the worst of us and compare it to the best of white people. Like we always say, well, look at the project and then look how they're working in the suburbs with white people. There's white people in projects too. There's white people in trailer homes, so why are we not comparing the projects to the trailer home?
Right.
We then skew it in our own minds to make it look like that, you know, our neighborhoods are so bad and we're afraid to walk in our own. Like, I'm afraid to walk through a black neighborhood. I am not afraid to walk in Buckhead. I will walk clean through Buckhead, you know, with a polo shirt on.
Right.
But we then compare that to the worst of our neighborhood to the best of their neighborhoods. And it's like, we just have to say, like I said, to somebody that thinks like Candace Owens is absolutely ignorant. She is ignorant. I mean, and there's books out there that she has not read. I mean, I recommend for every black person to go and read The Talented 10, to go read The Miseducation of the Negro. That gets you to the very thought process of what we are seeing and what we do to ourselves, not listening to Candace Owens. I guarantee she can't even tell you where to find those books.
And she probably can, and that's another reason why I can't do it, because she probably can. But you know, it's nowadays I don't trust people like her, even on her own agenda. I just trust her to be, you know, out here cooking up a storm for some bread, because every tweet and every rewatch it is a dollar sign for her. So people who like, and she got resources as far as education. So it's hard for me to believe that she truly does believe all of these things. But it's possible. A lot of times I'm like, you gotta be catering to your folks. I don't understand.
It ain't so much she doesn't believe, it's just her comfortability being comfortable. That's what she believes.
Possible.
And that's what's in her head. That's what she believes, that George Floyd was a criminal, and that's what she believes.
And then that means that she believes that he deserves to die.
And I didn't read that. I just knew she said that he said that he had she was bringing up his criminal past.
Right.
I never said that she said that he deserved to die.
No,
but
I'm saying, I think if you bring up somebody's criminal past, then what are you implying? Oh, well, we shouldn't talk about him.
Well, I think she was probably implying that we should be glorifying him like people are doing now with the memorials and everything. Like he was a civil rights, activist or something.
But that's not. That's the thing. That's not what that is. What we're memorializing or whatnot, whatever the word is that it wasn't deserved.
Yeah. I mean, I clearly understand that. I'm just looking probably through her lens. Is what she's probably saying is that, hey, this guy wasn't special. So because if he was just but you gotta remember, there are people out here who are paid to do that.
Exactly.
And there's people who gonna take the bait to say, I think about myself, not you.
Right.
And we got that amongst our own people.
Yeah, that's always there. And that goes back to the point.
We got people who think about themselves, their money, their lifestyle, and say, forget you. I don't know if we have enough black folks to help lift other black people up or give them the tools of success. I don't know. I could be wrong for saying that. Well, I could be totally wrong. But I just know that people like Candace Owens, we all are old enough to see, we've seen people like that cares more catered to make white people feel comfortable than help us. But we have to get to a point where we stick together. And I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're there enough to stick together. To say, okay, if I've been blessed to get knowledge and education to help me live comfortable, have a comfortable home and everything, why can I give you the same tools and tell you, but if you choose not to take it, don't blame nobody but yourself. But I know that's kind of on a different ball game. But just to Candace Owens, I literally just read that a couple of hours ago about her raising $200K, and their GoFundMe took it off. And I forgot what they were gonna do with the money, but she raised that. But you got some people that's instigators.
Right.
That's just how it. Condoleezza Rice was there, and she knew them girls that got killed in the 1963 bombing.
Yeah.
But what did Condoleezza Rice do for black people to help black people progress? Nothing but talk smack. It just happens, man. So,
but you gotta give her the benefit of the doubt. You don't know what she's done. So
no, we don't.
If we go back to the Barack Obama, we can't say what this chick has done.
I mean, you keep talking about, you keep protecting.
I'm not bashing him. I want us to think. I want us to see this thing holistically, though.
You trying to protect all Republicans now.
I'm not trying to protect nobody. My thing is, we have to hold. We gotta hold each other accountable across the board. And if it's unacceptable for Jay-Z to go and tom out to the NFL, if it's unacceptable for Shaquille O'Neal to tom out to Papa John's Pizza, then it is unacceptable across the board. And we have to.
You cross the line. You cross the line. Somebody's gonna time out to Papa John's. Shaq made money.
I ain't got that much time.
If Steve had a chance to be on Papa John's board where he can make millions of dollars, Steve, sorry, light-skinned brother, be over there right now making that money. He would.
Part two,
He would.
Last question.
Steve is about money. Talking about Shaq is an Uncle Tom because he's on Papa John.
Bring him to Shaq. Wow.
The ratings are going through the roof.
Are you serious? On Papa John's?
Last question. Is the system salvageable, or have we just gone too far? And we'll end on this. Is it even salvageable?
I say, if there's rules if there's laws and other things put in place to stop the progression of minorities, even on the basic levels, and that's where again where I want to hit as far as the Legacy Museum. And again, I urge if anybody has, please go there. Whenever they open back up, they're closed right now. So when they open back up, because it's probably 20, 30 feet of blocks about a foot wide, half a foot, well, a foot long, half a foot wide, that break down every single law that the government has ever put in place that did the opposite of helping a minority, especially specifically Black progress. Every single one, from when we got here up until within the last few years. And when I tell you, it's for people who may not like, if you don't know politics, or if you just know law, or if you just don't understand the layers of oppression, and just especially through laws, that is the perfect place to go. When you break it down, it literally takes you probably about an hour to get through all of them while walking along, reading all the different blocks. It is incredible. It's incredible knowledge for everybody to have. I wish they had like a online virtual way to view it, because if so, I would pay the virtual fee for some people to go look at it just so they can understand what we're up against. But if those can be put in place, then I'm sure that, there's things can be done, can take them down. So I say yes, but I'm definitely pessimistic.
Well, I'll let Steve be last. I know you got something smart to say. So I think it's sad. I think what Trey said is right. Things are salvageable if things change. If things don't change, then it's not. We live in a cruel, crazy world. People have their own thoughts and opinions. Racism is still here. It's going to be here until the world comes to an end. And my thing is, whoever listening, is use this time to educate. If you have sons or daughters, educate them on race. And then if you're a mentor, talk to groups of kids about race, because you don't know if they're getting the same talking to at home, and you don't know if they're getting talked to about hating. You don't know. But I think it's salvageable only if laws change and things change in this society. And I appreciate the opportunity of being on your podcast.
Right on.
Yeah, I would say it is salvageable, but I think we're still maybe 3 or 4 generations away from it. Yeah. I think it's going to take a little bit more of the browning of America. I think it's going to take effective changing in laws. And, maybe it's the president that is only 2 years old or 5 years old now, or even watching these protests happen, that now they're, whether it's a white president or a Black president, now to see some of the protests and the things that are happening that is stuck in their memory now, that says, I will fight against this the older I get. So, right. I don't think you destroy 500 plus years of this country in, 5 years. It doesn't change that quickly. Right. I think it is salvageable, but it's going to take us years and years and generations to get us there. So, I think it's eventually, and I think right now it's just one of the pin needles in the timeline of change that we say, like we can pinpoint and say, the Civil Rights Act of 1968 was a pinpoint. The election of the first Black president was a pinpoint. The riots here and revolution that we are having right now is one. And there may be 2 or 3 down the road that we don't anticipate. But I think now it's just we're at a point where it can change, but it's just going to take us a while to get there.
I agree. I think y'all good brothers hit the nail on the head. I think it is salvageable, but I think it is going to be a struggle, as it has been. But I think that we have seen through the history of America, Black people persevere. They survive, and they make it happen. So it's never been easy. It's not going to be easy going forward. But like you all have said, through future generations, through our youth, and through the allies that they make, the true allies that they make, who see, what's what, we will get to where we need to be. But unfortunately, you know what I mean, we're going to have to fight our way there. Hopefully peacefully. But yeah, I think it's salvageable. But with that said, man, thank y'all so much for joining the podcast. I appreciate it. We got a lot done today. It talked about a lot. I appreciate y'all coming through. Might have to do a little follow-up episode or something like that to touch base once again. But once again, gentlemen, Steve, Mark, Tracy, thank y'all, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
All right, man.
All right.
All right, bro.
All right, bro.